Hello and welcome to Who Does Walls TV. I am your host Mike B. Here we are in another week of May, I think. We'll say May. I'm going to reverse things around. What I'm going to do is I'm going to do some news, do some board game news. Yes. So not a lot to report of the newsworthy stuff. There was a small kerfuffle at tail end of last week, I think it was, around about then. Isaac Childress, the designer of Gloomhaven, put out a post on the Frosthaven Kickstarter thing, backer thing, update, that would be the words. And so that went out, and in short, it was that he'd hired a cultural consultant to come on board to look over the storyline of Frosthaven. He acknowledged that there was a few problems that he had in Gloomhaven, in his opinion, with the discussion of the guy. He was removing the word race from the game now because he felt it was culturally insensitive. It's essentially there's too many negative connotations to it, and he just went a little bit into the tropes of fantasy literature generally. How even back to Tolkien and all that the good guys are white elves, the bad guys are dark-skinned negroid type creatures. So there's a lot of unconscious bias in fantasy. And then he was saying he'd made some mistakes himself in Gloomhaven, and a couple of issues regarding a scenario, one of which involved a child and putting the child in peril, stuff that could potentially be trigger points. It's all kind of stuff coming a little bit from RPG. The RPG world has advanced in the last few years and definitely put in place a lot of safe words, like areas of content warnings, essentially to make the play area, the area where you're playing in, as safe as possible, just in case there's someone who has potentially something that they don't want to encounter in their game. So that is a long and short version of what is done. The consultants in there, as I say, to just go through and just make sure they don't do anything insensitive, which I don't see a major issue with, really, if you want to make your thing a bit more welcoming to all parties, all peoples. And that they were just pivoting the main storyline of Frosthaven, which Frosthaven had been almost a colonialism type thing of them taking over land, and essentially was taking stuff that was the characters, give them more information, front loading them with information when they make decisions. They could still make the wrong decisions by the sounds of it in the game, and that's so be it, but front loading you with as much as possible to mean that you are in a safe place. Anyway, that is a nutshell of that, and it kicked off definitely the Kickstarter comments. Look, the end result is, if someone says, look, I'm going to do this, and if you don't like it, then you can have a refund, fine. A lot of them read in between the lines. I mean, he'd mentioned Black Lives Matters, and that people that weren't supporting that, he'd offer them refunds. That came out. Essentially, you had a lot of people, neckbeard basement dwelling types, who were doing the whole "I'm not a racist, but" comments, and then probably making themselves look racist. So I don't know. I personally don't have an issue with any of that. Okay, as long as this game is still the game I backed. The storyline's just being tweaked a little bit to a better degree, by the sounds of it. So I don't see the issue. But there you go. People will find issue with stuff. There was issues with that, and that happened. I'm sure you'll encounter some of that. Other news. The Spiel jars were mentioned. The nominations are through for that. The Kenner Spiel, which is one for Kitty Widdies. The one I jumped out of that was Micro Macro. The Crime City has been getting a lot of buzz of late. That's been nominated in the more family friendly category. And Lost Ruins of Arnak has been often, or most recently, a little bit of everyone's favourite. This is deck building worker placement game similar to Dune Imperium, which I've been talking about. For my money, I still think Dune Imperium is the stronger theme and a bit more fun to it than Arnak, but I played Arnak on Board Game Arena and I did enjoy what it was doing. It's quite a nice experience, though I found I was detached from the theme, possibly because it's on the screen and not in front of me, so I don't know, but it was all right. I prefer still Dune Imperium, but that's been nominated for the Spiel des Jahres, which is obviously the bit more grown-up version of it. And there were some other games that they didn't jump out at me as much as those did. So anyway, so there's that. That's kind of news. I think that's all the real news. Kickstarter-wise, there's not been much that's blown my socks off. There is expansion Railways of the World, which includes a couple of new maps and a solo mode, the Rail Bound solo mode from David Turksey. Railways of the World is one I picked up. I tracked it down and picked it up, and I do like it. I think it's really good. I got it predominantly because it plays up to 6. And some board game nights, in my Friday game nights, we have 6 people. And I wanted something that played 6, that had a bit of meat to it, a bit of, rather than the party game. The tracks and the separate boards and that are a real bear to get hold of. A fucking nightmare. So I've currently gone in for $1 on it, just so I can get the Pledge Manager. I'm contemplating if I might pick up on one or more of the maps or whatever else is available on the Pledge Manager, because there might be other stuff. So I might just pick up a few more maps for it, is what I'm thinking, especially stuff if it's trickier to get hold of. And at a reasonable price. That's not a bad price. Kickstarter is actually quite reasonable price. So I definitely picked something up, I suspect. Railways of the World, good fun. I'll do a review at some point of it when I get to play it a couple more times. But yeah, it's a really solid railroad tycoon type game. Not too rules heavy and good fun. Anyway.
What's Mike played? I really want to know what Mike's played. What you played, Mike? Oh, and you other guys.
So, with today being the Monday, we've opened up everything. People can now meet under roofs and stuff and things. I thought, well, you know what? We are days away from it. That's been the rules of it. So we met up on Friday for Friday games, and we met up on Sunday for Sunday games. Or was it Saturday for Friday? Anyway, we met up twice. So last night, Sunday night, we played Twilight Imperium 4th edition, of course. We bolted in with the bolted in Twilight Imperium Prophecy of Kings expansion, which adds a lot, but not a lot. It's not being helpful, no. So what you essentially get with this, it adds a couple more races. Well, good, I'm using the race word already. We just covered that. Okay, it adds a couple more factions. Aliens, there's about 8 more aliens in there. Species of stuff that you can play around with. There's also a couple more miniature sets, so you can play up to 8 players if you want to. A lot more tiles, planetary tiles and hazard tiles for building maps with. A lot of tweaks to those as well. So there's legendary planets in it now, which when you take those planets, not only do you get the resources from it, but it gets a secondary card, which the planet has some ability you can also use every round. To each player, you now get a few more tweaks. You get some extra bits of prophecy notes. So prophecy notes are something you can trade between players. They link into these 3 characters you have. You have an agent, a commander, and a hero. The agents can be used from the beginning of the game, and they give you a buff ability, usually by burning flipping the card, tapping the card. You'll get that ability, which will tie into your species thing. Then there's the commander card, which has a one-hit wonder. It's a one kind of almost game-breaking ability. It does something once, you burn the card and you've done it. And then the hero, they may be the wrong way around. And the hero does some sort of buff. It's usually a passive buff that's running. Again, kind of fits with your characters. Aside from that, there's a bunch of decks of cards been added in. So each time you go to explore a planet for the first time, there's now cards relating to those, and they often have either buffs or relic fragments. You can trade in to get relics, which are really powerful one-off sort of kit, or buffs to actual planets, which will buff up what the planet produces or does, or science tech or whatever else it offers. So that's kind of cool. And I think in a nutshell, that's pretty much what it adds. Oh, and it adds some other tokens to the board for unexplored space zones that you can get tech to discover that. Again, more cool stuff. It's messed around with the agenda phase, the political phase. There's some new cards gone in there and some came out. And in a nutshell, that's kind of what it's done. So it sounds like a lot, but actually in the scheme of things, it's kind of a more of just a bit more gameplay stuff, but not massively rules intensive. So we played a game of it. I think a couple of us had new races. I had one of the Valrath Cabal, which is kind of like a space kaiju crossed with a bit of Cthulhu. They open warp gates up and stuff, and just kind of suck. When you get into a fight with these guys, they essentially, anything they destroy, they take those ships into their thing, and they can use them to create those ships without costing them the resources, or create the tech without having the tech things. They seem overpowered because all he does, I had a really couple of successful battles with them, and I just sucked ships and fleets and stuff off of Robbie, and I think I did the same thing with Tony. And then his hero ability, my guy's hero ability, was to detonate these warp areas, these rifts, gravity rifts. Anyone near them, the special ability, if you triggered it, what it would do is you had roll of dice on everyone's ships near it, and it would essentially, anywhere between a roll of 1 to 3, it would take those ships, destroy them, get rid of them, and I absorb them. And about mid-game, I uncovered this ability, unlocked it, because they have unlocked them, saw what it did, and looked at the board. Now, when I'm building with my character, I'm creating gravity rifts on spaceports, and I'd scattered them out early doors anyway. I hadn't taken the time to look at what my special ability would be, so it came to me as a surprise. So, as I look at the board state, Tony, who's got 3 huge amassed fleets coming towards the central board to have a crack at me, are all pretty much sat next to gravity rifts. So I trigger that. And though it wasn't as chaotic and carnage as I would have liked to have seen, it was painful and it was fun. So there's lots of new stuff in here. We never finished a game. We got to about 1 in this morning, and we called it. We roughly gauging where we were at with the next round of stuff going on. We would have probably seen Jamie and Tony, Robbie, close to 9 victory points, possibly simmering around that area. Debbie 8 or 9. I would have been about 7 or 8 myself. Tony, I think, was around this. So we were all very tight and close. And I think probably only within another couple of rounds it would have been game over for the whole game. So we were getting games of it through in about 4 hours. That did extend it. I think predominantly we haven't played the ball game properly for 6 to 8 months. There was just a smattering of new rules and new stuff going on, and Tony broke, which is often the case. Can't help it. But yes, on the whole, running through that just to say that I enjoyed that. I love Twilight Imperium anyway. I had the mat out. I got the insert in there, so I've kind of really gone down the route for that. But yes, Prophecy Kings. If you've played Twilight Imperium, as a really quick down and dirty review on this, if you love Twilight Imperium 4, you have it, you played it, and you played it a lot, and you really enjoy it, then this just adds more good stuff. It is going to extend your games, it feels, at the moment. I suspect after you've played with this expansion a couple of times, you will bring that speed back down. I think actually you could actually start doing what they say, which is tearing through games. But yeah, I haven't played all the races yet. Obviously, more races, cool. It also adds all those tweaks to the existing races, so they've all got their own commanders and stuff as well. So there's new tactics for those. It's a lot of playability bang out of this box. And I'd be interested to play some more of the new ones to see, because the guys I play with felt a little bit OP. I'll be honest with you. Did feel a lot OP. But there we go. That's Twilight Imperium Prophecy Kings expansion. I don't know whether they're going to do any more. I don't see really there's much else could be added at this point. And to be fair, that's quite a full-up box I've got now. I don't really see what else is coming. There is the Codex stuff that's coming, which I've got the second Codex stuff being printed by Make Playing Cards. I've got that coming. So when I get that, we will have a look at that. Now, give me a second, because I have a pizza in the oven, and I'm going to go and check I've incinerated it, and then I'll come back and discuss Plaid Hat Games' Abomination of Frankenstein. Yummy. So, yes, Abomination of Frankenstein is exactly what I just said. It's set in the 18th century. You're in Paris. You are playing one of many mad doctors. All of them have their own power, ability. My character was a psychopath, which was very helpful. Where you essentially have 3 dials. Dog. It's the dog. Hold that for. There he is. Here's the Baxter boy. Here he is. For all the puppy lovers who've missed out. Oh, is that good? Here he is. He's all grown up. He's all a big puppy now. So there he is. I'm not going to be able to review while this is going on, because he's just purring like a cat. Oh, so now you've got to push that off your stupid foot. Oh my God. Oh. Never work with animals and kids and all that, as they say. Anyway, so Baxter, yes. Abomination, Heir of Frankenstein. It is set in the 18th century. You play a scientist. The idea is that you are going out body snatching, finding body parts of varying qualities, and trying to assemble your monster and then bring it to life to win the game. There's a time track running during the game, which is ties into the original novel. There's basically a police inspector guy, a captain I think he's called, who's trying to track you down, trying to stop your experiments. So he's a time track. It reaches round 12, I think it is, and it's game over. There's various events happen every round, thematically story events, which are kind of cool. And because they play into, essentially, they have multiple choice options. In the back of the rulebook, there is a bit of like a choose your own adventure option on there. So you can read that section, make a choice, and they will be good or bad results, depending. And there's also a app, or they did for Forbidden Waters, and a narrated app, so you can run that and it will do that for you and track those things. So that's kind of cool as well. So a bit crossroady. But so yeah, essentially that's it. You're playing there. You've got your own, as I say, player powers. You essentially got a player board on there, which will have these dials at the bottom, which are your humanity, your intelligence, your fame, something like that. I'm paraphrasing, and you can mess with them during the game by upgrading them by getting stuff, and each of those things will equate to stuff that you can do on the board. It's a worker placement, as I say, so there's locations on the board, some of which give you better payouts depending on how far you've moved one of those expertise trackers on there, and they open up other buffs and other workers and other stuff by doing that. So it's kind of a heady mix of, it's worker placement predominantly. In fact, it's all worker placement. You're getting these body parts back. You can then salvage the body parts. You can have a choice usually on them of, do you take them to gain the intelligence, the smarts, to be able to upgrade your smarts track, to be able to then build the body parts, or you just take them as base materials, and it's split down into cubes. And this is my one real critique of this game, is the colouring of the cubes and the colouring of the cards. Once you work out on Grok that actually they run in a certain order and it's fine, you can do it pretty quickly, but especially not in great lighting, you're kind of the brown and the purple cubes and all that, you're like, what? So that seemed a poor, silly choice. I get that they tie kind of thematically colouring into the items. I suppose that's what they've done it, but I think they've missed the boat. I don't know how that would play with someone who's colourblind. I'm not certain if that's a good thing or a bad thing. But considering I'm not colourblind, I'm struggling, I kind of have to think that possibly it would be great. However, I've never done the research or looked at that, so I might be the opposite end. So, yeah, that's in a nutshell what you're doing. As a solo mode, which you can get off the Plaid Hat website, there's also a faster play mode, which you can also get off the Plaid Hat website. We played the game without any of the tweaks of the faster thing. It did play long. Granted, it was a teaching game. Played in about 4 hours. So it did drag on a bit. But once we were rolling, actually, the latter half rounds were moving pretty quick. So that was a teaching problem rather than, I think, a game problem. I suspect if we were to play it again, it would cut that time down significantly. We could definitely get it in probably 2.5 hours or so. But yeah, really good. So essentially, you get the corpses, you get the cubes, and you can then spend the cubes using these cards you'll see, which are to build the body parts. You initially start by building like a muscly version of it. Then you have to skin it. Yes, the opposite of skin it, but you need to put skin on it and then give it life by rolling some dice. And you need to get bits of kit to be allowed to do all that sort of stuff. So it's kind of, most recently we had My Father's Work, which was on Kickstarter, which I backed in the 11th hour because I am Donard and I'm Donard. I love gothic-y, mad scientist style of games. Whereas that's a macro version of that environment because you're doing a variety of different things. This is a micro sort of version of it. This takes that one experiment, like creating a corpse, and it goes into great detail of how you would have gone about doing it. That's what this whole game is about. Whereas My Father's Work is about many mad scientists over generations doing mad scientist shit, one of which would be reanimating corpses, I'm sure. So I'm happy to have the prospect of both in my collection. Because these do fairly significantly different things in a similar thematic bathtub. Yes, I threw myself with the bathtub analogy. Splishy splashy. So yes, this particular soap-studded rubber duck it's cracking. It's really good. It is a bit of a heavy burn. Once you've got all your parts in front of you, every round they degrade. You can buy ice and kind of keep them fresh, but if not, they kind of degrade and rot. And then the victory points you get by using those parts and building them is lesser. So it is very much an engine-generating worker placement. You are putting your guys out there. You're trying to generate your DARs, which allow you to give you more workers or more stuff or more expertise to do more things on the board. What is quite nice, there's a couple of areas you can go to that give you cards which will allow you to fuck with the other guys, which is kind of nice. There's humanity cards, which you can boost your humanity with, but also have some naughty effects. And likewise, there's these, at the academy, you can go and get some smarts cards. They're not that, but that's what I call them, which allow you to increase your intelligence, but also get on a good perks and stuff, reputation and things like that with them. So cool. There's not a lot of locations, and it's all kind of, you're mostly doing the same thing, which is basically picking corpses off and stuff, but you get the buffs from your characters. But once you kind of grok what you're doing, it's really enjoyable. You've got this nice puzzle, this jigsaw puzzle of building the corpse thing, all different pieces as well. So it's nice. You get that kind of mishmash patchwork effect of body. And it's all kind of gnarly. It's not massively gruesome. There is some of the corpse photos, the artwork on some of them. Some of the fresher ones look a bit gnarly. So if you have a delicate sensibility, then perhaps it's new. But it does evoke that gothic horror feel, and I quite like you've got this choose your own adventure. It's some thematic underpinnings to it. There's some story going on there with the events. It's quite nice to have that little sort of choice and doing stuff like that. So yeah, Abomination, the Heir Frankenstein for Plaid Hat Games. It is currently out of print. I'm wondering, I don't know if it's going to get a reprint. But yes, it is good. If you're a fan of that gothic thematic-y story, it does a very good job of capturing all of that. It's very kind of thematically linked in. It's quite cool. I like it. I like the art style to a point. I quite like all that. It's got a kind of muted colour palette on the thing, but it all kind of is that evoky, gothic-y kind of feel to it. Mad scientist stuff. Yeah, it's pretty good. Components quality is fine. It doesn't blow it out of the park, but it's nice. The board has got some nice sort of shiny, polishy effects on some of the bits and pieces on there. Can't say the art is really nice. I really like the art throughout, actually. It's very dark and twisted, but it's well done art-wise. And everything's functional thing. There's no real things. The rule book is all right. I took having to play through on my own with a couple of players. I didn't just played it through just to get a grok it, and initially it was like, what the fuck? Granted, probably because I haven't played a game for a while, but it did take me a little while to get my head around what it's doing, and once I grasped it, very straightforward. But yeah, so cool. I think the only thing that could be of downside on that is it could play a bit long, but then there's the short variant, which next time I play with this, I'll use, and we'll see how that speeds up process with the Sunday guys, hopefully. But on the whole, I really enjoyed that. I felt really good. I'm quite happy to have that. It's going to stay in the collection, I think. It's a nice one. It's one I'd quite happily get to the table again. Now I know what I'm doing with it. It's got enough, I think, legs there to make it playable for at least, yeah, good few games out of that one. So that's the Abomination Frankenstein. That's kind of mini review of that, really. I should probably do a full review, possibly at some point. But now I've done a mini review. So I would give that, with standard attention, we're not doing thumbs up, but yeah, I'm giving that a Pitch of Tent award. I enjoyed that. That was really good. Prophecy Kings, again, I think great. Going back to that, the Twilight Imperium expansion. If you like TI4, if you're a big TI4 fan, you played it a lot and do get to play it regularly, then that's a no-brainer. I've seen it for about 80 quid, so it's not cheap. But there's an awful lot of playability in that box, and you would extend the existing playability of that base box by quite a significant amount. So there's quite a lot of content in there, and it does quite a lot of stuff. I think that's it for TI4. I don't think we're going to see any more other than the Codex stuff. But I think, as it stands, that's pretty good. I don't think there's a lot else that I desperately need in there anyway. So I'm happy with that. Cool. I've put a pin in that, and it's done. So there you go. This has been Who Dares Royals TV. I hope it might be. I think that's it. There's really not been a lot of news, as I said, so I've not covered a lot. That's what I played. You saw the dog. Everything's wonderful and grand. We're out and about for the moment. I'm going to try and get as many games in while I can. So look, watch this space. Hopefully I'll get some reviews up done soon. Now I can start playing games again. Wonderful. And I'm sure I have a list or two to come down the road. But for the time being, thanks for tuning in. I've been Mike B. This has been Who Dares Royals, and that was some games that I've played. What a strange world we live in. Whatever next. Ta-da!